Hello America, there's a phenomenon of how people could have verified things over social media where and how the right to lie is being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence in our faces. The Weathersfield police have roles fabricating conversations with kids through time with other agencies at the same time. They have predicate methods individually grouped and together, which involve fake motivations, planting uses of readings of statutes that give the benefit of the doubt to themselves at the last second. There are roles with overt criminal enterprises, the same names, private ones, and insidiousness of the logic A through Z, or those people are sensed. This is also relative to groupthink, reported, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, where they've been using news media. The news media also attach me at the same time to fake conversations with themselves and others. There are foreign and domestic medical families that work together at Hartford Hospital, their Institute of Living, though. They've been attaching kids and their families to faked and to changed conversations, whole fake transcripts, and about legal cases where themselves and their colleagues and their family members have roles with the criminal bodies involved, including as bodies grouped like criminal enterprises, private ones and American history, our founders communicated short words. We're supposed to not leave out how overt criminal enterprises, private criminal enterprises, and intelligence community as the three branches of government and exceptions tied to them. On off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed on Facebook. Our names involved increasingly with ones that were put in classes with me that I never had conversations with and ones that I never even saw around campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. This is other fraud. They're hiding behind, has their roles all along Route 3, all along Route 175, and the conjunctions to these things, and the conjunctions to that, where they describe maps and how they do their jobs and everything. This breaching method measures and maintains the difference between criminal insidiousness as the intelligence community, as they have shared roles with a whole bunch of other countries, which is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, something they're hiding behind. A Ray Cololo, a Joe DeMauro, a Tony DeMauro, and people with the name Michael Kerr and Jerry Kerr, I don't that are switching names too with New Britain Superior Court and Hartford Court's family members, also with the FBI on off Trinity College and CCSU, as people roles with a principal child abuser, and one and with the family members of the principals and deans, planting evidences as the names roles leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. It is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed when I was a kid and then as an adult. There are military people associated with the Keene family that has been influencing them to roles also to hide roles. To, people with the World Trade Center have roles with predicate acts with facts and with names at the court next to it right before the attack, the night before it, other way short term before it, and leading up to it long term with the same names, interstates and intercities. Never stop on some levels. All investigators, they never stop being used remotely, criminally foreign influence and pretending others simultaneously. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim, where and how every identity of the law stayed everywhere the species body is. Systems tactical ulterior from the one that describes properly how reason works, how the mind works. So we have physical delusions. I'm not a doctor and I've never read about this, but there are distinctly physical delusions, nature delusions, and identity delusions that our experts on delusions have and have had since founding. George Washington and James Madison left us to explain how Weathersfield slash Hartford were the last of 13 counterpositions. They had to counter extort for a short time, which then that enabled the breaching, crazy, fact cheating nature, torture, extortion, slavery, multi front on every single person in difference. and grouped, in other words, group difference. All voicings for humanity. Note, shock and awe. Shock and awe is reported by MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN together with the sources as roles with the intelligence community. Even if people aren't the ones with badges too. And the difference between that is consciously used by them, where and how overt criminal enterprises and private ones, insidiousness of the logic A through Z, and the news regarding criminal, in all instances, treatments and motivations descriptions. These are effectively being used to screen their roles with a whole bunch of other countries against their own too, because the difference of that's why we haven't addressed it the way our founders left us to address this. They told us not to, they communicated for us not to communicate. For them, leaving out how they didn't have free speech and everyone had to hide their roles and actual motivations against those crazy laws that were, or the difference between how that was, the difference of that is also employed for use worse. The difference between that overt criminal enterprises and private ones, that the method behind these these laws knew would only allow manifest, while it knew more than that, and while that was going on, it was in continually affect that. Its identity / IES and roles of people's motivations is increasingly involved with them, but they're leaving it out. So it's short words to ask Judge Napolitano to get the Connecticut Interbranch onto one name and sequence on paper, with their forging names, switching names, and wire crimes of Wethersfield police. They attach people to fake behavior and fake responses regarding their roles with child abuses and threats with this. And with where and how they have people that know my name and the people tied to me, but we don't know their name. The way they're doing this too. And how they use everyone around everyone. Self-evident, because they're lying to them where they don't have the right to lie. A lawyer of a Wethersfield police chief and a lawyer of a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence to Corrupt Organization Act. They're recorded worse than criminally incompetent and tactically delusions raw. The experts on the law, however, and in other words, being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence through time with other agencies too. So this is the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, RICO, that has been in the news. And see, this breaching method shows our agency's directors that in military, there are military police switching names, forging names, putting fake motivations for it. Has something to do with their roles with corners of the streets, like the mobiles, the gas stations on the Southstein Highway. And they sought me out. They sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have roles with names with the intelligence community that were criminally foreign influenced before the World Trade Center attack with relative illusions and fake motivations planting. Has something to do with names on off Two Rod Highway and Hangdog Lane that have been planting fake intelligence community information with little tricks. So they like to, that's why they're discussing how they collect information. See, what they do is they're hiding where and how, as the breaching method knew they would do at every modern country, everywhere the species volume is. They knew that they would do this in some ancient countries. They already did it before modern countries were locked in. The damage control that modern religions did and tried to do more, that was deciphered before their own people deciphered it. Just like America's founders were deciphered by the breaching method roles before we did. And that's because the breaching method showed the breaching method roles also grouped countries, tortured, extorted, In fact, keeping nature enslaved, some ways easier than it is to do that against individuals, let alone everyone black. How they left out black, how we have black people's whites of eyes, exception, how we have nature answering other. Then we're allowed well, these are good people. See, everyone was backed into roles of predicate acts with facts, identities of logic, because you had the short words replaced when you were little kids, and your parents had this, and it became manifest where and how self-valued, where criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and or negative treatments with where and how we are syntactically manifest. So there's syntax racketeering, for example, worse than war crimes, because there's identity racketeering worse than war crimes. And this is manifest therefore where we have names treatments. Nature has us need to use names so we could discern where and how identities volumes / S science works. And it's that way so we could discern the rest of the identity of space / existence as it is actually itself. And as actually how really the semi-ancients, all this corruption and things like that became. In latter semi-ancient times, it are proofs. In ancient times, the languages were revealed together. And the identity they share and how and why. The difference is there. Because there are a whole bunch of different ways we could observe the same thing, but we have to appreciate more and more simultaneous ways we could observe it. But we have to use lists. We have to use lists and arrays and the difference between those definitions of the same thing. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, because of how correlation nature works. See, the sciences, including the religions, they were only known abridged. And that has conjunction to where and how people are constantly using positive and negative. Every time you use a value, anything positive or negative is in demonstration of the simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous. That identity which revealed each of the species' bodies the way they are, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously the same, but also hyper-simultaneous. That's one of the things that being an individual is, a sequence / simultaneous nature, relative to the species' body of volume, invisible but still discernible. And so, how people debate and what they use as evidences is reflective, only still manifest, because the sciences have stayed abridged, a certain type of victim / hyper victim that is distinctly from overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and from the insidiousness of the people A through Z, like regarding the value of voting, before we have addressed the entrenchments of the breaching method, the grounded circuitry, conjunctive to our value / value progression, where programming was and is a word that is increasingly valued the way it was before computers were invented, as we know that. Programming works with this phenomenon of where and how we are sequence / simultaneous nature, and distinctly from how we are simultaneous nature / sequence nature. And when we observe this, we'll observe more ways than just how the other species' bodies didn't invent how they or we have two eyes, and we didn't invent it. An exception nature, someone lost their eye, etc. It's in demonstration of the same thing. See, but natures of debate are only allowed heard when we hear these topics, and or exceptions are being exploited. So the mind reason uses exceptions in exception nature, reception of languages uses exception nature in ways we have been forbid uses. In other words, the first parts of the Old Testament of the Quran, they say things that would have quashed. No, where they say the only part that matters is right here, but that's never brought up. Where and how debates are brought up, and never appreciated is the relativity of it, and it's relative to where and to how computers perceive with sequence. They have YouTube videos on this about how computers work. I won't go into the details because I don't have one right now on me to list. But if you type something in sequence, you take it and the computer takes out of sequence, how's it going to appreciate? How are you going to appreciate the nature of serious debate and subjects with the other parts of books if you can't appreciate where and how it says only right here? In the Old Testament, for example, it says only right here. Someone only has to know right up to here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together. Because of where and how the sciences simultaneously share an identity observably, while they simultaneously do not share the same identity, or appears not that they don't. That when we observe this honestly and properly, it reveals that and how nature is increasingly showing us. It uses exception nature, all the ways we do or could reveal or make up, but hyper additionally from that, per the difference of where and how it is itself. It is its identity of relationship to itself, and is the value of that as 3 volumes equaling increasing per where and how it is invisible but still discernible. More so than an atomic nucleus, a proton, neutron, grouped difference, and electron, valence shell relativity. I learned that also, but I'll put a link to that video. I won't go into it because remember, we have the world to learn out there from YouTube videos, etc. But if we don't take the nature that comes first, there's value with this, and that is the value of what's to come as itself. See, we can be led by what is true always, not leaving out the slightest finite detail. And then more and more, it shows us answers. So we're gonna examine the only reason. So this employed all identities of jobs, of titles, of locations, knowing, for example, additionally, we are voicings of the ground, of the other species' body. They are voicings of and about us to an extent. We can discern one identity of value / value progression is making more of its identity of forever nature through its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. And it shows us how each temporary identity comes with the formation of its temporary / lasting identity from before, then while it is being created, and from beyond itself, perhaps simultaneously five distinct identities of sequence slash simultaneously, also three ways bound. Show this hyper invisible but still discernible. Hyper invisible but still discernible. Distinct identity of invisible but still discernible, such as the predicate, such as the subject, that comes hyper additionally with every subject. No, as its value. Identity's value is greater than its own. Each identity of each cell of your body has a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. And your complete identity has a semi-nature relationship to the identity that, again, has the other species' bodies manifest the way they are and ours are. And who wanted to debate this also has inherent active and progressive to their quality aspects and nature of fact should be nature. Proofs of the same thing. But see, this has been reversed. Per how this, and there's a Christopher Cullen. I only know him. He's supplanting evidences, identity theft frauds consciously with people with the intelligence community foreign that as the names criminally foreign influence timed rules with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. There's a Cullen family. I never met the rest of his family. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with mayors of former Mayor Gold and a Joe Aiello as one of the names next to the Hartford Hospital with foreign and domestic military and medical and overt criminal enterprises at the same time, planting evidences on campuses with names in all sides in criminal and civil cases, names on off the state judicial branches offices, names on off the state corrections offices. These are also names involved with all kinds of predicate acts on my street, where and how this is on everyone's street. But no one cares to follow mandated law. So follow mandated law, please. Judge Napolitano. Someone asked Judge Napolitano to follow mandated law for Connecticut Interbranch. Get them onto paper in one name in sequence regarding their confessions. If they want to deny it, because of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act, James Comey, and other agencies in foreign and domestic military had West Hartford locations where it had been influenced to roles with predicate acts with judges and prosecutors at the same time. As their names involved with this timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. They're pretending that they are legitimate roles with all these other countries with criminal justice and with unmarked police forms and with the nature of how they speak for the law. In other words, they can't speak for the law. They are criminal insidiousness, self-value to a certain type of a victim / hyper victim that responded as an aid because they were child abused. We can't leave out what I call done from the campuses with foreign bodies, time collusion with our own. We can't leave out because it's some ways it's also differentially because it's been that way. Where and how they're being used remotely now is inseparable from how they were used remotely in the past, putting faked evidences into databases. No, increasingly as collusions with all natures of crime scenes because they are involved with communications racketeering, readings of statutes with foreign bodies at the same time, and lawyers too, all sides of cases, lawyers, victims advocates, and then again, names of the hallways of the court, names of the court, switching name sequences. You guys are hiding roles and uses of the names on off the Ninth Circuit Court in the World Trade Center attack on our side who had conscious roles with a whole bunch of other names in countries of other countries leading up to it. The breaching method assigned all names of all natural differences to mean other and to be used by other as roles with that. Therefore, blaming more and more correct things and names, but leaving out the name of the breaching method, the scientific value of the breaching method. That was an identity of conjunction to all those laws like witch trials and slavery and pretending others simultaneously. So in other words, all identities of logic are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and this is recorded and this would have been overcome, but we have to have mandated law followed. So WFSB and Fox Connecticut News have rules with families named Demain and Mendez, who have also along roads and routes next to the campuses and with names next to the campuses. There are people with the name Yagman who have a whole bunch of doctors involved with child offenders and elderly homes with Eric Mendez and his brother, also on Weathersfield Police Department and Fox Connecticut News in the buildings next to them. They have roles with WFSB, and WTH has email crimes with them. They have whole wire crime methods with their phones, the police. This is not just Weathersfield Police. These are police departments, intercities with the same house/S involved with them. Since I was a kid, roles with predicate acts, with facts, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. People that know my name before, and I don't know theirs, and where that's relative. And also where and how the interbranch are switching names with this. They have female judges they're gonna confess to, but we have to get the former director, the agencies involved with it, and the military have been planting evidences to let them get away with it. They have a detective Samuda, who's involved with, per the state's description of it, black/white female judges, sickly distinctly from how the male judges have roles of switching names and fabricating evidences also with prosecutors and names with the hallways of the courts, with all kinds of people, I don't know the names of their positions and things like that. A whole bunch of people tied to a Jonathan Mayana and a Rick Cianfaglione. A Rick Cianfaglione used to hang around with people with the name Cololo, that Bob Chase and Weathersfield Police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also with state police, they have roles with Phil Cololo and people with that name Cololo, also with confessions where they have the name Sullivan. There's also the name O'Sullivan, and the difference between that involved intercampuses through time. Kids from Weathersfield involved with child offenders, leaders of kids, they recorded, confessed, demonstrated. Daryl Sullivan is also one of the ones involved on Park Street through time, and with campuses and homes, families that live next to Park Street, with prosecutors and judges, with drugs and medicines crimes with kids, with doctors supposed to be against that. They're also attaching kids to fake uses of drugs and adults, and fake locations, fake ties to themselves and to their family members in the form of fake transcripts, also about legal cases where they have roles with federal criminals in those cases before they were caught. So Weathersfield campuses and Rocky Hill campuses and Hartford campuses have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also roles with where they make confessions through others and then pretend there was communications. So there are people with the name Luigi Guerrero, I believe is his name. I don't know his sister's names. And they're people associated with them intimately. I don't know if they're married, what involved planting evidences and fake motivations with foreign bodies, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, fake communications at all with me, syntactically. And they've been, the time where people are going to go has something to do with their roles. Dominic Leparata is one of the co-defendants of former Director of the FBI Robert Luskin. His neighbors are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with Eric Jensen and by an Eric Jensen and by a Ray Cololo, involved with other people on my street through time, involved with Newington police families, ones that were here before they even moved into their house, which has a former police chief, Knapp, and neighbors of his further involved with medical offenders of kids and remote uses of investigators, and people within confessions, and they're forging and switching names with the judges. There's a Judge Smith, there's a Judge Killian, and there are other ones with the forging and switching names who are involved with sexual offenders of kids, including on social media with the FBI and other agencies. These are names also timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and uses of corners of streets with them. as a Joshua Stryker is one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the intelligence community on off Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College. They're also leaking and pretending they don't realize they're leaking because they want the motives planting. They're lying when they were planting the motives too. They have a whole bunch of countries that are lying about hiding behind that, and their roles with the fire departments, intercities, also with names next to those locations used. See, this breaching method uses location/S. I tell it best, Boxings. Please have Miss Berger Sweeney respond, because a whole bunch of people on my street and tied to them have roles on Trinity College who had been planting evidences, and there were untimely deaths connected. Even if they were all made up, a former director of the FBI is recorded with the foreign bodies with the World Trade Center attack as the ones who were involved with this, to hide it also. Now there are judges from various natures of courts and their family members, and our mayors also that have been planting evidences since, and with the news again, and fake motivations, because there are foreign bodies involved, including overt criminal enterprises and private ones. So there's also a pattern of conscious uses of completely fake, and then instances in ties between me and kids I never had anything to do with. I went to campuses I went. At every campus I went, including the difference between that, where it comes up till where they have links between them and other kids made for them by other natures of bodies. And then they pretended it's personal, why we have to use their names. Everyone forced the kids to use each other's names, criminally foreign influence in the past, so no one can go back and be legitimate when they speak about any instance or feeling regarding the past. This is consciously people with the Institute of Living, which is like psychiatry's version of the church's diaspora throughout the country, interstates. They have the experts on mental health and on psychiatry involved with news, planting evidences with foreign bodies, criminally foreign influence use/S of all locations/S, therefore effectively used to measure and maintain conclusions with it. Self-value rules with how money is made. Now, this can be observed when they make opinions regarding other people, when they try to address us honestly, because our founders also left us to address how syntax would market positions and regarding, the nature of the debate with such. How it is being still used unceasingly to measure and maintain identities of criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, identity treatments, convictions. 2, tactically delusions raw, unsafe. Collusion with the military, criminally foreign influence, pretending other. Uses of their evidences, they're using dead people for evidences that their value, in other words, that's not how you defend someone. And who you're supposed to defend those people is that's when it's too late. And it's stayed too late since semi-ancient times. So it's the responses to it, suits and ties, counters, self-value, collusions, and screening of that left entrenched, and how left entrenched, and how that's used by a function, a singular method rather, that propagated all the other negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and names roles with it. Therefore, with 6 things, criminal insidiousness natures of positives at the same time. So the news locations communicate, confess, demonstrate, record, confirmed. They have roles with the retired and standing intelligence community and their family members, also with the buildings next to them, where they use crime methods, where they influence fake conversations with people, and by having using truths for lies. Like a person walk up and says something to someone they don't even know. This is part of the reason people have weird behavior like that. This is also while they're being used remotely, because this is already exploited. names on all sides in criminal and civil cases leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that context, as the ones with the World Trade Center collusion with the ones with the court right next to it. Interbranch too, individually grouped together. They have predicate acts methods together. So you guys have had the experts on the law leave out details, finite details, as styles of it, leaving out simultaneous details, as styles of it, as styles of criminal insidious nature, criminally employed, legalized, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. Same reason they criminalized marijuana. Now Connecticut has rules with syntax regarding that and how it hurt Black people, effectively being used to measure and maintain, covered up, collusions with our agencies and courts themselves for other reasons needing to cover this up. How they do it is per how they have roles originally still with names that are not even a part of the instances that are brought before courts where they ask questions about them. Those questions are used to imply and put fake things in databases as collusions with the people just putting full whole fake transcripts, including at campuses filmed 24/7 to prevent that. Everyone's criminally foreign influence. They never had an identity. So there's a Gooseberry Hill and people along Walcott Hill Road who have roles with foreign and domestic military involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, fake motivations planting, uses of confessions. Also, next to, courts have roles consciously making people make confessions through statements after they know that, they already confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed they were involved with the intelligence community with federal evidence as crimes, federal rules of evidence as crimes, and predicate acts. So they have training of men and women of the intelligence community off Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University that have been used to further identity theft, fraud, slanders that were timed collusions consciously with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Increasingly, neighbors of a Paul Kelly are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people next to the news media locations, involved with predicate acts with them. Also using news stories on off child campuses to plant collusions with various natures of organized crime where they need sense and sensibilities of people effectively how it is recorded. They effectively manage them, to keep people from being honest about the past because where the relativity of them sticking predicate acts into campuses in between them, fake motivations. These are also intelligence community with the state police and police forms interstates. Rhode Island, Vermont. There's a Mike Roberts, a whole bunch of people with the intelligence community recorded, confessed, and with Wethersfield schools, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Mike Roberts is involved with shopping centers, planting evidences interstates, with judges and prosecutors, and with teachers of mine who are involved. I never had a conversation with them. All exception nature appeared to be in demonstration. All others, demonstration, the same thing. Where and how they're parking into the intelligence community. We're going to examine their roles with the campuses and with thought. Tactically delusions wrought, criminally foreign influence, voices speaking for the law's nature. Wow. I'll gather around, Boxing. Thank you. I teach us things belong. Make sure they pick one name in sequence, get on paper, and respond for the confessions of the Wethersfield police forging and switching names. A Sullivan confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. A Kalal was one of the ones involved with them. And these are with agencies with the name Sullivan International, because these are like the Eastern States Narcotics Drugs Task Force has roles also with the military and people with all the topics in the news since the World Trade Center attack, where they have intelligence community ask questions. It's used to measure and maintain collusion, self-value, and other pretending. And the uses of the word attack has roles with sequence shifts, cover-ups, by predicate acts methods roles, and crime scenes, and originally, still, increasingly, They have roles with stories about people breaking into stores and things like that. It's effectively collusions on off the camp with the predicate acts methods and names on off the campuses were consciously used are the difference between those natures of people killing each other and all those other things that are going in jail for to have collusions with the people with the jails names and with the courts names and interbranch family members and way worse. And uses of that is where and how everyone's communicating other than they actually say, as the breaching method knew it would. So they have a whole bunch of people with the campuses further involved with the news that have been as teachers when they do little school a camera on a teacher and the kids. That's been used for predicate acts. They have roles further with the principal child defender with more things then and now. They have a Mike Levine and they have an Emmett, who is one of the ones further with the intelligence community / IES. All kinds of natures of sick things. They also use the words like attack, don't forget, to pretend we're attacking them, to keep it off of what is actually recorded. The Emmett has roles fabricate with also the school resource officers fabricating audio and video transcripts, including with medical families, foreign and domestic, that have badges, and with their extended family members, criminally foreign influence uses of corners of streets, all along routes. Inter and intra-cultural differences used consciously on off the campuses. They're not just that dumb, naturally. Where and how black pupils, white survivors has been left out, exception nature. The value of the breaching method that was used to those laws, sick the way they were, individually grouped and together. Consciously, use of natural differences, tactical them from what natural nature communicates with natural differences. And how fake branches bow and fall and step aside or fall. If I want to play punk games, in other words, I could sue them now and win, but I still can't sue them because they're switching names roles. That's why I'm giving them the opportunity to say sorry and just put the honesty there, and then there's no problem. One of them, I just want the ones with the rape threats with New Britain Superior Court and other passion crimes involved with the switching names. These are ones before the World Trade Center attack that have roles with such predicate accents and fake motivations planting, who had roles leading up to it involved. Also Joe DeMaros, and how they have a bunch of Joe DeMaros and a John involved with a John DeMaro and his neighbors involved with child defenders, including the worst natures of, I wouldn't put it past them to be roles with child trafficking because how they have roles with even female judges with sick things and natures used remotely, consciously, overtly, / insidiously. We could heal them, but you have to follow mandated law for the judges. They've been using the Facebook pages of the campuses and of the Wethersfield police and of the courts to hide what their families are being and haven't been used remotely for too. And they brought it up, pretending to know me. Also with foreign and domestic medical, personally and professionally, criminally involved with them. And the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, co-defendants of former director of the FBI, with and as a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime figures and ones tied to them and their family members. So let's go. Get on paper. They pretend they use the crime method against Americans. They make things extensive, and they lie about what people say clear, and what it would and or what they say that's obfuscated, and or per their roles with uses of the difference of that too. Don't forget that and how nature uses that and how we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. And it shows us that and how it uses difference all the ways that we could and then ways further. So we could discern its identity. It's how about so but we're not paying attention to the hypernative. We're not paying attention to the quality aspects of fact-cheating nature. And to an extent, consciously, everyone's blaming other things other than themselves. Per the relativity of the sequence shifts too, planting, and fake motivations planting. So Ray Reynolds has the intelligence community involved with his neighbors and family, with identity theft, fraud, slander to make it look like he know me, with the context I saw I know him in. And there's one I don't know at all, Joshua Julian. He's one of the ones planting evidences with the intelligence community through time, all from the old Weathersfield locations, all along Route 175. And online, he has roles with the principal child abusers Facebook page, and he noted news predicate acts, fake news, no, to quote President Trump, from the past while he was in the process of committing predicate acts against me as collusion with child offenders, including sexual and medical further then and now. But we have various natures of police forms with their family members and names that work with the courts involved in their family members. And military, foreign, and domestic has the same names. So get them on paper because they have the teachers involved too with their family members, some of them. They're trying to make things so they're lying about people's motivations when they speak. I'll whisper Creek. Egg. They get them on paper, or diplomacy. Please, Judge Napolitano, let me show you guys how to think. Modern countries' leaders of law's voice. I'll show you how it speaks. It uses difference, doesn't use its words, but it is such an identity of value progression, inseparable from each detail, individually grouped and simultaneously the way it is. Also further hyper simultaneously distinctly. So we could observe this. English values, it is the identity, therefore that values English valuing the predicate. The same reason law is valuing the predicate act. And this is for discernments, not just by the invisible, but still discernible. As that and how we share with people that aren't even here. Same color eyes, while different color eyes at the same time. And there are exceptions, etc. It is how it is bound. One way. I mean, how distinctly hyper additionally, as would his 3 ways manifest, as would his 5 ways manifest, as the same way manifest. Observation of it is its identity of volume, its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that, which is what reception of every subject is. This is what reception of content. This is what not just reception. This is what is coming to, from, as, with, and for each thing, each part of each thing, each group part of each thing, and further as itself, as will not juxtapose with temporary / lasting but one way. Many vaccines. I teach us thing, follow mandated law on time. They don't follow it on time. Also as roles. They've been intercities since the World Trade Center attack and before it. Every year they've been planting more faked evidences. The intelligence community of Connecticut involved. New York City, let's go. I'll show you how to push them into this. I'll show you how to get all the fakes right out of their fake identity and train properly. See how they keep bringing up in that training? See how they keep speaking for black and white. They haven't communicated with our founders, communicate about that. Get them on paper now. Get them who disbelieves. New York City, let's go. Their Facebook plays, their narratives behind it. They can't defend it on paper, so they have to look for more tricks. They're over here looking for ways to make pretend they perceive things fake because I came first. And when they mention how I for right after my father died, shortly after, I raised my voice. Before I did that, and I forced people to call the cops because I knew they would record themselves. I did that too after the World Trade Center attack. When I used the little kid's voice, there are proofs that the intelligence community, because they had already demonstrated that they use that locations next to the campuses and names next to them, like a Gill family. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have rules of predicate acts with people named O'Brien and Colella from Weathersfield. and people associated with them, like Luigi Guerrero, also involved with the SAM, involved with police forms along and overt criminal enterprises along Franklin Avenue, and judges planting evidences with the names on my street involved. And they're doing that so you can't communicate things. That's how, in other words, they're pretending it's personal. I love you, people of the street, and everything like that. Only with these exceptions, I want to have them on paper so we can calmly detail this, because there are people involved with the Smiths and with the Cololos who have been planting evidences and have roles with violence and weapons and, poisons and all names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and locations used as relative. They are not and have not been legitimate roles with the intelligence community. They have Rocky Hill Police Departments, and Newington Police Departments and Wethersfield Police Departments involved with them, also with other agencies, and prosecutors and judges and their family members with wire crime acts and methods, and much worse with child defenders, leaders of the kids too. I caught them with. And as you know, so follow mandated law for the people speaking to you about the law since founding. Pounding drums. The only people allowed to speak for mandated law. Collusions with predicate acts with facts and uses of that with names that came before that and uses of that. We're not going to leave out how here and there really our countries are bound. They're not legitimately caring about that. Oh, but these groups will hurt. Get down.